Steve, your lessons are helping you so much. Oh my goodness.
Hear that.
Yes, for sure. I appreciate that. Literally.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. So tell me, what would be most useful to you in our conversation today?
Just in our conversation, I just have basic questions. One would be, how did you master the logical reasoning part? Because I know I bombed that on my first LSAT, and I literally was just guessing, which is not good. But the strategy that I had gotten from the other class didn't coincide with this, with like the actual LSAT questions, because they were more shorter. So the strategies I used, I couldn't use on the previous LSAT that I took. So I just wanted to know like how you mastered that part of the test.
Sure. It really came down to doing tons of questions and reviewing them in detail to better understand the mistakes I was making so I could avoid making those same mistakes again. So the breakthroughs really came when I deepened my review process.
Okay. That makes sense. That does help. What about reading comprehension? I always think that's like the easiest part, but it probably isn't. Because I get stuff wrong, but I understand where I went wrong. But how did you master that part? Was it review as well?
Yeah, reading comprehension is pretty much the same process. I think it's actually a little bit tougher to improve upon significantly because our reading habits are so deeply ingrained, whereas the other sections, we haven't been doing that kind of analysis as much typically.
Okay, that makes sense. Gotcha. So definitely keep reviewing. I'm finishing up all the lessons. Monday I should be done with everything, and then that's when I'm going to start all my practice tests. I've already started. I've done about 3 so far. I know you said 10, so like at least 10. So I'm working on that.
Great. Awesome.
So I also had one more question about like logic games. I'm getting better at them. I'm getting so much better at them. But I do have a question on when it comes to like, if X, not Y, I should always do the contrapositive, right?
I think that you should be able to do the contrapositive smoothly. I don't think you always need to write it down. There could be some exceptions. But for that particular example, in isolation, I'd say it's useful to do so.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. What else? I know I had all my questions, but when I get on here, I'm just like...
No, not at all. Just one thing at a time. No rush.
So making different scenarios, like, for example, like if for example, okay, so I know I had it, like A, B, and C. So like, how would I know when I always need to do a new game example, like a new scenario?
Well, if you're talking about making multiple main diagrams up front.
Yeah. Yes.
This is a question I get virtually every single day. And it's because when you can make multiple main diagrams, it unlocks the game so smoothly. The questions are really easy after that, but you can't always do that. And so the idea is, could you lay out a few main diagrams that encompass all the possibilities for the game? So if you knew, for example, that the letter A could only be in slots 1, 2, and 3, you could draw out 3 different main diagrams, placing A into each of those positions, and then you'd be able to further see the implications that result from A being in each of those different positions. And so you know when to make another one if there is some possibility that you haven't yet covered.
Gotcha. That helps, Steve. Okay. So yeah, because I wasn't sure, because making those diagrams does help. I just don't know when exactly I need to be doing those, unless it's like implicitly implied. You know, like A is in 1, 2, or 3, like what you just said. I know I would need to make a new diagram. But that makes sense. Okay. That makes sense, Steve. Thank you.
Sure.
Timing. How did you get better with timing? And I know I have about I have 53 minutes in each section, but I don't want to use all if I don't have to. So how did you get better with timing?
Like anything else, you get faster at it by getting better at it, by deepening your understanding. So I think with continued practice and review, things will come more smoothly. The LSAT really is a test of pattern recognition. And so the same way I got better at the exam and improved was I was able to spot the patterns more quickly. And I was able to relate new questions back to questions I had previously done. And so speed comes with proficiency, which comes from those patterns becoming more automatic. So I see a new question, I can more quickly and easily relate it back to one I've done previously. So I'm never really doing a new question for the first time.
Mhm.
I'm drawing on the benefit of all my experience up to this point where I see that question, I can consciously or unconsciously relate to something I've done before. And then because those tracks are more deeply worn in my mind,
Mhm.
I have a certain intuition that comes along with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, Steve, I recently went to one of the schools I'm looking at is Campbell University in Raleigh, North Carolina for law school. And their admission process, I was asking because I feel like I'm like late, if that makes sense, for fall. And the person was just the admissions person was like, no, like as long as you like submit all your stuff by March, you'll definitely be fine and like in the running for scholarships and stuff if I have a good enough score. But I was just wondering, would it be smart to just wait one more year? And it's not even a year because applications come out in September, but just wait and take it this summer again if I don't get the score I want. Would that make more sense than just rushing and trying to get into fall now?
The short answer is yes. It's better to wait and apply at the beginning of the cycle. There may be some scholarship money still available in March, but if you want the best admissions odds and the most scholarship money, all else being equal, applying earlier is better. And I
Gotcha.
would encourage you to also think beyond just one particular school. There are a wide array of schools you could apply to, and then you could play them off each other. If one offers you more money, you could go back to the other and say, hey, school A offered me this. Can you match or exceed that?
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, what law school did you go to?
I actually didn't go to law school. I got so sidetracked with this LSAT obsession that I never moved on. But I love what I'm doing, so I'm okay with it.
That is amazing, though. Wow, I love that, Steve. Okay. Now, what did you want to go to law school for?
That's a good question. I was really interested in criminal law, but I'm not sure how fleshed out that idea was. I think it may have been a little bit too influenced by media and
Right.
not enough by on the ground what it's really like. And so maybe it's for the best, but I'm still fascinated by everything law school involves and the kind of thinking you do there. I think it's really interesting.
Now, do you think the LSAT does prepare us a little bit for law school?
Well, it has a strong correlation with first year law school grades, and that's why it's considered a valid and reliable admission test. But as for what it means for being a practicing attorney,
Hmm.
I'm not sure that any standardized test could really reflect that well because there are so many directions a legal career can take. And there's also being able to bring in business, being able to generate business. And that's real world experience. You can't mimic that on a multiple choice exam.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So, Steve, I know like your LSAT score does not reflect how you are, but like I feel like it's gonna reflect how I do in law school, and I'm really nervous.
Yeah, that's an understandable concern. I mean, like I said, it's a good predictor of first year law school grades. And so that's the dense reading that and analysis you do on law school exams is similar to the LSAT to some extent. And so it's worth studying this more. I mean, especially if you're willing to wait a cycle to apply, you
Right.
could take it in January as we've discussed, but there's no rush anymore. You could do it in March or April instead, or
Right.
even June or July instead, and really give yourself the time to reach your fullest potential on this exam, which would not only maximize your admissions chances and scholarship money,
Right.
but it would also prove to you personally that you're going to do well in law school, that you have what it takes to succeed. Because let's say, I'm just making up numbers here, if you were scoring low 140s,
Mhm.
that would not bode well for first year law school grades. Alternatively, if you got high 150s, low 160s, and beyond, that would be a much more promising indicator of how you could do. And so you give yourself the time to learn what you need to. You're
Right.
proving to yourself that law school is worth investing in.
Perfect. Okay. That helps, Steve. You don't think I'll be late to the game?
No, not at all. Especially if you wait a cycle, you'll be at the beginning.
That's true. Okay. You're right, Steve. That makes me feel better. Thank you so much, Steve.
Pleasure. Anything else for today?
That was it.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we sign off, what would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
I feel like the biggest insight was on really how to prepare for both logical reasoning and reading comprehension. It's just that I have to keep practicing, keep reviewing different questions. And then the law school process was definitely insightful as well.
Awesome. Well, please keep in touch and I'll see you in class soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.